Hello everyone, this is Crota giving you part 2 of a replay between Argos, Zenith, and Hansin here on Metalopolis. In comes the Planetary Fortress trying to deal damage here, and the Banelings simply just trying to come in and splash, perhaps going after some of these SCVs. The Banelings need to start splashing onto the backside there, however, able to take it down with the sheer number of mass Banelings. Metalopolis now coming in over here to try to deal damage towards these missile turrets. However, the missile turret able to get off a couple quick shots, and now we see Hansin running off of 2 bases, compared to Argos Zenith is 4 bases at this time. However, this main base only has 5 mineral patches, and that is a lot of eggs. So Argos Zenith currently producing a lot of units, 54 Zerglings now being massed up, as there are now Metalopolis in the air to try to take down that last missile turret. We do see a Nidus Worm already coming into play, nothing in that Nidus Worm just quite yet, and now Hansin being forced to run back into his base as the Zerglings come pouring out of the base. We do see Banelings now coming in as well. Will the Banelings start splashing down, able to take down a couple of those key units there, and now everyone deciding to jump back in. We do see another fight over here. Marines trying to fight back against Metalopolis in the air, however, not enough. And once again, Banelings showing up to a party, and there's nothing really here to fight, so they will just be pouring back into the Nidus Worm here. So this Nidus Worm has been taken down. And with this Nidus Worm now down, perhaps he will try to take down this Nidus Worm over in this position. So one Baneling just scouting out, making sure that his opponent is not able to take any additional expansions. Hansin does have a very large army, sitting at a 5,000 mineral count. However, his army is rather slow compared to the Zerglings and the Banelings. You take into addition the use of the Nidus network, and that just completely changes everything. Banelings and Zerglings, we do see a lot of Banelings currently being hatched here, and that one Marauder may have a very bad day. I do not know if I would try to stick around in a fight right there. We do see a Nidus network with a lot of units inside that Nidus network. We do see one outlet here, so all of these units in the Nidus Worm will be able to still be positioned. Now, once again, we have Metalopolis in the air trying to finish off these units, trying to go after some of those siege tanks, want to make sure that they do not get sieged up as all these units are getting caught in transition. Marine stores and Marauders trying to push back up. Once again, we do see a lot of units over here, and they are just continuing to fight back and forth. The siege tanks, however, unable to watch onto that high ground as more Banelings are currently being hatched. So you can see a lot of Banelings just currently being morphed into play. We do see another hatchery over here, however, it's simply taken down by mass Marauders and siege tanks offering a lot of siege support. So once again, more Metalopolis in the air. Zerglings now coming out once again. Will the Thors start trying to come in? And now this is going to be a perfect flank here. All these Banelings simply running over this whole entire army, and Hansin will be taking a lot of damage here. Down it goes. All that's really left is a Thor being picked up. However, the Metalopolis now in chase. That Thor needs to be dropped down. There we go. Finally getting dropped down here, and that Thor will be able to two-shot any of those Metalopolis as it has that level 2 weapons upgrade. So once again, very nicely done. Both sides committing into those fights, able to stop that fight. We do have a couple Marines now trying to be very gung-ho, trying to come into this location here. Marines just trying to get as much sight as possible. However, a swarm of Zerglings will quickly be able to surround that, and down it goes as well. We do have some long-distance mining coming in, as another hatchery should be placed down here in just a moment. Argos Zenith does have enough minerals for this location, and now, once again, Overlords being positioned here. Perhaps we have another command center with a planetary fortress currently being upgraded. Do we have anything in the Nidus network? Yes, we do have a lot of Zerglings and Banelings, so those should be popping out in just a moment in order to deal damage. However, not really doing anything just quite yet, as this command center will be upgraded to an orbital command. And I like this play by Hansin. Hansin placing down barracks to act as an additional wall on this planetary fortress, so it will be very difficult for Zerglings or Banelings to even come up into this location here. We now see a swarm of Overlords hanging around on the backside of the base. Perhaps we'll be placing down another Nidus network. And looking at the armor upgrades and the weapons upgrade, we see Argos Zenith sitting on 2-2 upgrades. Meanwhile, Hansin sitting on 2-2 as well, getting the 3-3 upgrades, and those stores have that level 2-0 upgrade as well. So unless those Metalopolis have the level 1 Carapace upgrade, then they will get two-shotted out of the air. So we do see a lot of Overlords still hanging around over here. Metalopolis just sitting off in this position as well. Perhaps they will be trying to push, trying to deny any expansions. We do see that Hansin finally sees this Nidus Worm over here, and I'm a little surprised that Hansin is not trying to deny this location. Once again, we do have a lot of Banelings, so we are going to have a Baneling bombing run with these Overlords in just a moment. So what I assume will happen is Overlords will try to fly into this position here. The missile turret will focus down on these two Overlords that do not have anything in those eventual sacks, and then the other 8 banelings will be able to deal a significant blow to the economics of Hansin. So Hansin sitting at 62 harvesters. Meanwhile, Argos Zenith sitting at 54. However, Argos Zenith able to mine off of more mineral patches at this stage in the game. Hansin needs to take an additional expansion. However, he is already spread so thin because of his rather slow army. Overlords now making their way into this position over here, going to start dropping these banelings. So 1 baneling, 2 baneling continuing to be dropped down, more banelings being dropped down, and Argos Zenith getting a lot of kills onto this expansion over here. Taking a look at the harvester count, now falling to 46. So we do know that Hansin is now behind, economically speaking, in terms of harvesters as well. Back over here, we do see probably, way too many SCVs trying to mine from 1 mineral patch there. Not much is going to be happening. Zerglings now is trying to swarm the center of the map, making sure that Hansin is unable to take the center. He did lift it off from the main base here. Vikings now on the move as well. If all of these Vikings come across all of these overlords, those overlords will get shot down very quickly. However, we do see 1 orbital command just hovering around in the air, unable to do anything at all. So now Mutalis trying to fly out, perhaps trying to deal some damage towards the production buildings of Hansin. Hansin looking pretty safe right now. However, his main army is sitting over here. Banelings now trying to move out, and these infestors pulling back as well. I do not see neuroparasite being researched, so it will not be able to grab and control any of these siege tanks or the store here. Down and landing is an orbital command, so 1 orbital command here. We should be seeing mules being called down in just a second. He needs that additional minerals. However, now Zerg is simply coming back in to try to take down this orbital command. Marines, Marauders, siege tanks coming back over and now lifting off once again. However, we do have a Nidus Worm in play, so Argos Zenith getting a quick Nidus Worm into the main base will be able to deal a lot of that production damage. A lot of these Marines simply getting taken down by that splash damage, and now Mutalis trying to finish off the rest of these Marines here, unable to, and Hansin still has not called down any mules. Finally calling down mules here. And I'm surprised he is not calling down additional mules or transferring any of these SCVs to that main location here. So Hansin will be able to start mining out from this gold mineral location and fully saturate it very, very easily, as there's only 6 mineral patches as opposed to the standard 8. Marine or Mutalis once again able to catch 1 group of Thors and Marines. However, the Marines able to stim in and simply shoot down all the Mutalis out of the sky. Mutalis are not upgraded at all. We do have a lot of Marines, and now Hansin in a very, very dominant position once again. Hansin realizing that he had to take another expansion and went for a very ballsy move, trying to take the gold mineral expansion. And by taking this gold mineral expansion, you should see his minerals now per minute is at 3,000. So Argos Zenith is in a definite problem right now. Argos Zenith will not be able to take this center location just because siege tanks on this ground and this ground are so very powerful, able to start blasting away at any of these drones that are trying to mine from here. However, Zerglings simply coming into the base once again and trying to take down more of the production buildings here. Zerglings being picked up and dropped off, and being dropped or picked off, excuse me, as these Marines and Marauders able to come into this position. And now we have 1 Mutalis in the air. Army-wise, 2,000 versus 5,750. And I'm not sure what exactly Argos Zenith can try to do at this stage. He can try to go for Ultralisk, but Ultralisk really are not that strong. And still unable to really do all that much. I'm also surprised that we do not see any gas being mined out of this location here. Argos Zenith losing a lot of his tech buildings here. We do see a Greater Spire. So with a Greater Spire and now another Nidus Worm coming into play, we should be seeing, where is that Nidus Worm? I cannot see it anywhere on the map. Is it here? There we go. Another Nidus Worm coming out. Zerglings just pouring out straight into these Marauders and Marines. Will be able to start coming in and dealing more damage once again. However, Hansin does not want to try to save or overcommit too many of his forces here, as he realizes his weakest link is in the center of the map. However, we do see a couple Corruptors now being trained. So with those Corruptors means Broodlords, there are a decent amount of Vikings in the air, 3 Vikings. So those Vikings will be able to attack and shoot down those very, very slow moving Broodlords unless they have any sort of escort. We are getting the level 3 weapons upgrade and the Terran building armor. So the planetary fortress will soon have 5 armor. Everything else will have an additional 2 armor, and those missile turrets will have 2 armor as well, and the main buildings will have 3. I'm also surprised that Hansin is not going for any additional gas here. Just very, very satisfied with trying to mine out minerals at this high yield location, but you will quickly find that high yield mineral locations deplete very, very quickly. We do see a couple of Marines here finishing and taking down this one Nidus network, as now Hansin continuing his firm grasp on the army or on the economic game throughout this map. Hansin, if he upgrades this to a planetary fortress or an orbital command, both of them would be a very, very strong option at this point in the game. Also placing another command center here, so it looks as though Hansin wanting to build planetary fortresses strategically around the map, making it very difficult. However, Zerglings simply swarming in from another Nidus network and now trying to take down more and more of these buildings over here. Marines stimming and able to shoot down a lot of these units. Very nicely done. The command center using its load and unload cargo feature in order to hide some of these SCVs there. So nicely done once again by Hansin. However, Broodlords now coming into the map over here. However, there are no Corruptors and no anti-air units, so these Vikings will just be able to pick off all of Argos Zenith's units once again. So Broodlords without an escort simply getting shot down out of the sky. However, I think a lot of economic damage was dealt, but those Broodlords were really just wasted in that particular scenario. However, Ultralisk now pulling in over here. So Hansin being faced to fight a war on what, 4 fronts with the use of this Nidus Worm. Another Nidus Worm still being positioned over here. Marines and Marauders trying to stem in over here. One of the Argos Zenith's Ultralisk getting caught up there, down to 5 hit points. Does have what, 6 armor, so that Marine finally getting taken down by the help of another Marauder there. So trying to chomp away at these units. Ultralisk now coming in using that slicing Kaiser Blade and able to finish off even more. We do see an Overlord continuing the spawn creep here, and now Ultralisk coming into position over here. So these Ultralisk trying to deny and trying to win this fight, even though he has significantly less of an army so far. The Marauders are dealing 20 damage per attack against those 6 armored Ultralisks, and a quick Baneling drop onto the base here. So Hansin finding himself on the wrong end of a bombing run once again. We do see what Vikings now in the air trying to shoot down as many Overlords as possible. Argos Zenith will quickly find himself supply locked, as a group of Overlords here are going to get shot down. So down all these Overlords go, now sitting at 154 over 146. These Vikings do move much more quickly than these Overlords here, and now more and more of these units are getting shot down. Down goes another Overlord, down goes another one. We do have an Infestor now coming in. Are we going to get any infested Terrans? Are we just going to try to use chain fungal growth in order to shoot them down? It doesn't. Oh, there we go. There goes another fungal growth. However, not hitting that other Viking here. So these Vikings just able to simply do so much damage towards these units. Mutalisks now trying to make their way over, and these Vikings will not be able to escape. Vikings do not move altogether that quickly, and those Mutalisks able to finish them off. Wow. So once again, Banelings and Ultralisks now simply trying to pour out once again. We do have a lot of Banelings currently just getting concussive shells, so unable to roll into that base. However, a lot of these Marauders now taking so much damage here, trying to use stim, trying to get away. Banelings continue to splash in and able to get more damage down. The Kaiser Blades now trying to chomp away at more and more of these SCVs. So all of these Ultralisks, and now Ultralisks coming in once again army-wise. 6550 versus 3750, and now Argos Zenith just doing a great job. Are we gonna get some fungal growth? Yeah, fungal growth unable to pull back with those units, and now all of these Infestors here, so doing a great job fighting with a much smaller army so far, as these Marauders and Marines you try to use that high cliff over here, and now Marines and Marauders down over here. So Ultralisks once again on the move. Are we gonna get another fungal growth is the key question. There we go, hitting a very, very tightly packed group of units there as those Ultralisks continue to barrel through, and now production-wise, nothing left for Argos Zenith. No, switching to 13 Mutalisks now. So as he transitions into Mutalisks, I believe Hansin is going to try to train up more and more Marauders. Hansin's macro is kind of falling behind just a little bit, sitting on, what, 2,000 minerals, as he could be producing a lot more units as these Mutalisks continue to just fly around the air, and now a group of Marines getting underneath those Mutalisks and able to shoot them out of the sky. So this game is still anyone's 2v1. We do have some Ultralisks currently sitting in that belly of that Nidus network, and that Nidus network just waiting to unload more units elsewhere as well. One Mutalisk able to sneak by into this position, however, will quickly get shot down as more and more Mutalisks come in. I do not know why that one Mutalisk didn't even just come straight into this position, try to get a Nidus network in here. We do see more barracks being built over here, and now these Mutalisks will be able to finish off a lot of these SCVs. SCVs just taking a lot of splash damage. Vikings now coming into position as well. Marines unable to figure out where they want to try to fly to as these Mutalisks try to take down more and more of those mules. A lot of mules over here, and those Marines and Vikings able to shoot down more and more of these Mutalisks. These Mutalisks trying to engage once again, and we now have this one barracks that was taken down. More Marines trying to come back in, and it looks as though this group of Mutalisks will get shot down once again. So Marines and Vikings able to counter those Mutalisks very, very successfully. We do see a lot of Overlords and Banelings army-wise, 7,000 versus 3,550 so far, as these Banelings now just barreling their way into the Nidus network, and then coming back outside over here. We do see a lot of Ultralisks now coming in, and Banelings now trying to come out. Zerglings and Banelings, we do have a group of Infestors, so the Infestors able to get a fungal growth on top of those units, and Banelings simply come in and trying to splash onto these Marines over here. More units still trying to pull themselves out of this Nidus Worm, and more units still just coming in a single file line. However, this is just a waste of minerals now, as it is not going to be able to swarm simply enough. Finally, the Nidus Worm is able to be taken down. Do we see another Nidus Worm being spawned anywhere over here? Not quite sure. Stay tuned for part 3 of this replay. Went a little bit over in time between Hansin and Argos Zenith here on Metalopolis.